First question is from Brian Pata. Can you successfully bulk while only doing unilateral leg work? I have this fear that if I bulk without heavy squats and deadlifts, the muscle gain won't be as substantial. However, I want to fix my hip shift. Love to hear your thoughts.
Okay, so,
opposite is true.
Yeah, well, you can bulk with any strength training exercise.
Yeah.
Now, here's why you want to bulk when you're trying to balance things out. What you're trying to do is build strength and muscle in the weaker leg. Mm-hmm. The bulk is going to help. Is only going to help that process. Now, here's the thing. Yes, squats and deadlifts are some of the best general muscle builders that exist, but there's always exceptions, and I'll give you one right now. If you have a big imbalance and you've been squatting and deadlifting for a long time, your body has now adjusted to this imbalance. And when you address the imbalance, you will send a new novel muscle building signal that's probably going to build more muscle on you. Yeah. And if it doesn't in the unilateral work, it definitely will when you go back to the bilateral work after you've corrected the issue. So this is all part of the same process. And a bulk is going to be more beneficial anyway for the reasons I said.
I'll make another case for it. I mean, if you are a consistent lifter and you almost always or have always and to this point done bilateral squatting, simply going unilateral for the first time in your weightlifting career or,
as a novel stimulus.
Is a novel stimulus, and you arguably may pack on more muscle.
Right.
So there's huge value to doing this. And the point you made about in a bulk is like, this is the time that I would not want.
Yeah, why would you want to put a cut to try to balance out your strength?
Yeah, no. If a client came to me and the
strength focus,
the main focus was to balance our body out, and we had a pretty good discrepancy from left to right. And we're like, okay, we're going to do all this unilateral work. I would want them at least on a maintenance to surplus. I would not want them in a deficit. That's only going to be that much more challenging for us to balance it out.
Anytime I'm trying to work on strength, like I want to make sure that I'm feeding myself adequately, so that way I give my body the opportunity to work on refining that strength. There's times to go on a deficit, but in terms of like you focusing on building up that muscle, like that muscle is going to need those building materials.
Yeah, generally speaking, the only reason why you go on a calorie deficit is to get leaner.
Right.
When it comes to any type of improvement in performance or strength or muscle or balance, which is a component of strength, you want to have enough nutrients, enough calories to feed that process. So if your goal is to balance out your right to left because, my God, my right leg is so much weaker than my left, or my knee caves in, or I notice like in this case, I have a hip shift, I want to balance this out. Well, if you want to make the process harder for yourself or almost impossible, you're going to go in a cut, or you're not going to eat in a surplus. Eating in a surplus means you're eating more calories and nutrients than your body needs to stay the same. But that's the point. You don't want to stay the same. You want to gain strength. You want to gain muscle. So I guess the next question would be, how much of a bulk? Well, to balance yourself out, you don't need to be in a massive bulk. I would be if you want to maintain whatever body fat percentage you're at, a slight bulk will be enough to feed this process. By the way, we had an example like this. You remember we did that episode where that girl called in and she did the DEXA scan?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And it showed because DEXA scans can get real specific. Like you have this much lean body mass in your right arm and your left arm.
Super cool.
She did MAP Symmetry, which is our unilateral program, and she built significant muscle, but it all went to the sides that were smaller and weaker than the stronger side.
So awesome.
I'll argue that if she did bilateral work, that wouldn't happen.
No.
Because she was so good.
Almost guaranteed it wouldn't happen.
That's right. Yeah. So in essence, she gained more muscle going unilateral than she would have going bilateral, all things being equal.
And now coming back to bilateral, watch what happens.
Crush.
Yeah.
Now, what might have happened to her is she built the same amount of muscle, but the discrepancy would have stayed the same.
Yeah.
So if she, let's say she put on
That's best case scenario.
A total of 4 pounds of muscle, she still probably would have built 4 pounds of muscle from training well and eating in a surplus, but it still would have kept the
imbalance might have been even greater at that point.
That's what I would argue. Yeah. What I would argue is that
greater or at least the same.
Right, absolutely. I think sometimes even greater because you get better at training.
Well, that signal's so strong it would pull a lot of the attention.
That's right.
Imagine.